All right.
This one goes out to the Artcasters. Ooh, Artcasters! I say you're catching your spell, Artcasters. Catching your spell. Ooh, you're gonna cast that spell. Strike a hell. Whoa! Ooh. Hi, hi. Hi, hi. Hi, hi.
All right. Welcome to Artcasters. This is episode 416, which means we've been doing this for a while. We have a wonderful returning guest tonight. I know we're interrupting the most exciting debate ever known to man.
Of the century.
Yes, the debate of the century. And now it's time for you guys to tune into a bunch of other old white men talking. All right. So let's make the rounds and kind of introduce ourselves. First, obviously, you're on my channel. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications. When we're about to go live and stuff like that. And then also make sure you check out this album. Let me see if I can find it. Boom. This guy right here on Spotify and all sorts of other music platforms. It's called Worst Places to Work. It's a entire rock album that's devoted to terrible workplaces. And that just was released maybe 3 days ago. And it's on streaming platforms everywhere. You can also purchase the album on Apple Music and stuff like that. So if you like rock, that's great. And then also make sure you've checked out They Don't Care About the Born, which is the album that was released a couple weeks ago. And pretty prominently, a very political album that can relate to the debate that's going on tonight on other channels and stuff like that. So, all right. And then also make sure you check out Jacob's Apartment and Two Stories, my two graphic novels that are indie and made by human beings. And I think you guys should support art made by humans, not by AI prompts. All right, so that's it for me. Scott, where can everybody find your stuff? And particularly if somebody's curious about maybe broccoli flavored candy, if that sounds strange, Scott, where should they go to kind of find out what that's about?
Yeah. So, like Josh mentioned, if you'd like broccoli flavored candy like this,
so rad.
My latest invention, Sad Dip, where not only do I create the package design, but I also create all the flavors and the whole 9 yards, puts it together. I show you how I do it, plus you get a little history on what this is based on, Fun Dip, and you get to see me open a bunch of cool retro candy bars. So it's a really fun video. You can check that out on my YouTube channel. It's CircWorks on YouTube, CircWorks Art Labs on YouTube. Definitely check that out. I also have a website, circworks.com, where you can get digital products to help you make your comics. Plus, I got custom-made, fan-made wax packs up there from some of your favorite movies that never got wax packs, and just a bunch of other cool stuff. So, and my comic book's up there too. Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. So, yeah.
I love it. All right, Corey, where can everybody check out amazing chapters of a book as well as fundamentals of design? You've been doing some crazy. Oh, we lost Ken.
Oh no!
What happened?
I don't know.
Well, while we're waiting for Ken to log back in, you can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. I am serializing a book about what would happen if people started becoming unmoored from the present moment and slipping around in time. And also, if you want to learn some design fundamentals, I've got new videos that are coming out pretty frequently the last couple of weeks, so you can check those out on YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, they're really thorough too, and honestly, not even a bad reference if you're a design pro and you just want to kind of recap a lot of core fundamentals in a concise and beautiful way, like Corey can always do. So, all right, and then our guest today is a good friend of the show, friend of a lot of the Artcasters as well. It is Ken Morra. indie animator, writer, and cartoonist, and just kind of all around very prolific guy. Ken, where can everybody check out your work, particularly if they're interested in epic graphic novels, historical fiction graphic novels? Where can they check out your work?
Well, I'm at kenmorra.com. And of course, like most comic writers, my website is continually being updated. So everything's always under construction. And
What are
I'm
you busy
also,
like writing comics?
yeah, I'm writing comics, and lately I've been attending lots of funerals and traveling much more than I should, and trying to maintain my house, which is constantly falling down around my ears. But that's life. So
I actually relate to a lot of those things. Yeah, you guys should check out Ken Morra's stuff. Ken Morra's website is obviously listed right down below in the links. And then, and not only that, Caravaggio, A Light Before the Darkness, is one of the best graphic novels I've read. You guys should definitely check it out. It's a biography of Caravaggio, where some liberties are taken, but not as many as you would think. Like it's deep history, and it's a story that I don't think has been told uh, by any other writers like as effectively. I don't think, or as entertainingly. It sounds like it could be like a droll like walk through art history, but there's duels and violence and sex and just wild kind of action, for to tell a story of Caravaggio, which is like which hasn't really been talked about as often in history, which I think is really cool. So check that out, you guys. So speaking of Caravaggio, and obviously check out Ken's other work as well. But there's a reason I'm focusing on Caravaggio. Ken, you just recently released Caravaggio in Italy in Italian.
yes, actually, that will be happening hopefully by Caravaggio's birthday in September. Uh, so I was invited to Comic Con Napoli 2024 at the end of April. And I have an Italian publisher, Fumetti Collettivo Zen, uh, and they're a group of artists and writers. The artist for my second graphic novel that's about to come out, Caged Birds, and
Yeah.
that will be coming out actually first in Italian. The first novel, the first half of it, um, as a trade paperback, first in Italian, then in English, and then the English Caravaggio's been out for a while, and that'll be coming out in Italian finally. The timing way off, of course, because of COVID,
Yeah.
but now we're all over that. So that'll happen hopefully by September, and then by Comic Con Napoli 25. Hopefully, we'll have Volume 2 out, and I'll be returning then. And had a really nice time. The Comic Con there was actually quite huge, and they were honoring, among other international artists, John Romita Jr.
Oh, nice.
And they had a good international mix of comic artists. It was I was quite impressed. If you take out the Hollywood part of San Diego Comic Con, it would be just about as big
Oh, wow.
a convention there, and
But it's actually focused on comics.
comics and also gaming.
Oh, okay.
So you have
Nice.
a lot of the allied arts there, as well as the comics mostly, but a lot of the allied arts as well.
That's exciting. I feel like you've been working for a while to try to like. I think the first time we had you on here, and you were talking about Caravaggio, um, a light before the darkness. And you talked about your intention to have it in Italian because it's Caravaggio. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you did a book on Abraham Lincoln or something and it wasn't available in the U.S. and
Yes.
uh, and so so there's a couple things before we get into like the just millions of questions I have about Italy, the comic scene in Italy, what you experienced at the convention and stuff like that. I want to hear all of that. But before that, what was the process like to get that translated into Italian? Like how does that even work? I've never had to like translate a book. Have you guys, Scott? Have you, Scott? You did do a book in Japanese, and my
Not
wife
a well,
actually.
not a book,
Yeah,
but a digital product. Yeah,
yeah,
and Maya translated it all for me. So
yeah.
thank you. I don't know if you can hear us, but thank you again.
But yeah, but I think aside from that, like Corey, have you ever worked on a book or anything that was I've never personally, and I'm fascinated about that process. So what is that like, Ken, to get the book translated into Italian, the transfer of like the word balloons and the design, like how does that all work? Like,
Well,
um,
I set everything up in Illustrator, so I use Photoshop to bring in the graphics, and then do some limited motion effects, overlay, and lettering effects. I did lettering myself for the single issue series, as I developed that for Comixology when that existed. Um, and then when I strung that all together for the graphic novel, and the lessons learned from lettering that, I started looking around for translators in Italian. I actually found a very good one on Fiverr, and then started looking around for other European languages as well. So actually, I have the text for French, German, and Spanish,
wow.
and I'm still looking around for Portuguese. Um, and the thing you have to watch out for a little bit is that the format for European comics is a little different in dimensions than American comics, which I didn't really contemplate much. Uh,
Huh.
when I published, so I self-published A Light Before the Darkness, uh, and then when I got the UK publisher, he sent me a template, which wasn't that different, but fortunately they readapted it, and then they uploaded that uh, to Amazon and to Global Comics, and uh, but the Italian dimensions are different, so Zen is redimensioning it for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So is it a size difference or is the actual ratio of height to width different?
yeah. So it's a little wider, and so yeah, the so it's wider and shorter.
Mm,
Oh,
okay.
so are you having to crop panels or are you just
Well,
kind of having a bigger
well,
bleed on the
well,
edge or
thankfully, I'm not. No.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing to worry about is that some languages use a lot more letters.
Yeah.
Right, I was going to ask that as well. Yeah.
So the real challenge will be for German, where I can already tell we're going to have to step up the page size to the next larger popular format. And then I'm going to have to go in, or whoever publishes it, we're going to have to go in and actually monkey with the panel arrangement and push them out so that the the occasional word bubble that needs to be expanded will
Yeah.
have more breathing room.
Interesting. So here's a question. When it comes to like proofs or like kind of reviewing like a translation, if you're not like, are you fluent in Italian, Ken? Can you speak Italian or?
Uh, no, in fact, I am now uh, because I have less than a year to do it.
Yeah.
Uh, I am now playing with three different Italian apps to become at least conversationally fluent by next year.
Yeah. Wow. That's, I mean, so here's my question. Like, how do you even proof whether they've honored your story or not? Like with that,
Yeah, I would
like,
be worried because, like, if you go on Fiverr, maybe a lot of them are using like AI to do translating, and we know how efficient AI is.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
this fortunately that was since I target that as the lowest hanging fruit and the most necessary
yeah,
translation. That was the first thing I worked on, and so fortunately, I have a very good friend, and if I can plug his stuff,
yeah.
his
Feel free.
name's Zach Lee Guaranaccia, and if you watch any movies and television,
Yeah.
he's a ubiquitous heavy and a stuntman in Hollywood,
Oh, cool.
and you will recognize his face. He's got he's got one of those Danny Trejo, Lee Van Cleef faces that you would say, "Oh, I've seen him
Yeah, yeah,
everywhere." And he's Italian. He's a ranked martial artist, and so whenever I got the translation, I would run it by him, and he would let me know whether it was good. And after the first couple issues, I had confidence.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so her name translating it was Federica Sakari, and I had a requirement of her because it's just like it's not just Italian, but it also has to have that kind of archaic in English
Yeah,
semi Shakespearean feel.
Yeah, that would be a challenge, right? Because you don't want it to sound like contemporary Italian speech and miss
Exactly.
the whole kind of like old timey vibes of the book that are kind of more authentic to Caravaggio's time. That's
Exactly.
wow.
Like so,
That is crazy.
so in English, you won't see the word fag or homosexual. You'll hear the word sodomite,
Yeah,
which is era appropriate. So I would use that example. I say, so whatever Italian word you use for that, it's got
yeah.
to be era appropriate.
Yeah, and to explain to the viewers too, so that book, the book is delves into Caravaggio was gay, like at the time, and you know, of course, that was illegal at the time, and so it delves into a lot of kind of Caravaggio's more like personal life and some of the feuds and disputes and things that arose from that in his life, you know, at the time, which was something that a lot of people didn't really talk about in early histories, right? So it's kind
Yeah,
of
and in
yeah,
fact, it's even less so, but it's still controversial now,
yeah,
and more so because he was not above using his sexuality uh, heterosexually in to for political advantage. So
yeah,
technically bisexual. Uh, if the opportunity arose, he would use that uh, to like romance a courtesan to a high church official in order
yeah,
to gain influence and commissions with the church. reasoning that under the protection of the church, he could then have the power to to live his more secret lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a fascinating like piece of history that like again it's controversial and also I haven't read a lot of writing delving into that subject, which is I think kind of a great place in comics. I'm a big fan of that. Right now I'm like right in the middle of a historical fiction book about the Brownings, Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning, telling a story about them that hasn't been talked about. And one of the reasons
Oh
I
yes,
even
yes.
signed on to it was, I had read Caravaggio, and like I've noticed that the historical fiction genre, if you can stumble on a story that's about a well-known figure in history that hasn't been told, and it's fascinating. Like
Yeah.
it kind of it almost forces you to have to work on it, right? Because it's like, well, no one's told this. Come on, like, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about that book that everybody should check out. Is again, Caravaggio is really well known as one of the greatest, painters. He kind of created, like a specific look to painting and lighting, and the fact that you have that is really cool. All right, so by the way, Paul said never drink fine wine before it's time, and he said Ken looks like the guy who used to say that.
Orson Welles?
Oh, Orson
I,
Welles. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
I believe so. Yeah.
If only any of us sounded like Orson Welles, right? That guy had the coolest voice on the
He did.
planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then Paul said
Yes.
comics and Legos and gaming and everything. Comics goes with it all. I love it.
Uh,
I like that he mentioned Legos too.
yeah.
Legos do have a real.
So,
And then
I oh that
Pepsi said it's an interesting story. He looks forward to reading it. Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I heard a great insult the other day. There's a science communicator. Um, what is her name is? Her YouTube channel is History with Kaylee,
Ooh,
and she brings the latest information of from archaeological sites. And being a woman, she gets a lot of crap from guy trolls, right? And so her one comeback she used was go step on a Lego.
that is good.
And I think we've all been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As a parent, I gotta say that's a deep, hurtful insult.
That's
Like,
really good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we
I,
all know immediately what that feels like.
Yeah, my kid's really into these things called like Pix bricks, and they're
Oh,
little
no.
pixels, and you can build like pixel art with them, but like 3 dimensional,
Yeah.
and
my
they're very much like a Lego. And there's like currently right now scattered all over his room floor. So
my go-to is always pound sand, but I like go step on a Lego better.
yeah, eat grass, pound sand. Those are good, but step on a Lego. That's like thought out,
Yeah.
and yeah. Um, I love it. So okay. So Ken, so you get it translated to Italy. You get invited to an Italian comic convention. Can we get into that a little bit? So what is the convention? And then
Uh,
were you familiar before going? And yeah, do you want to kind of intro it? I guess like what it was and
oh,
you know.
okay. So, like the year before, Heidi and I had the chance to have a little getaway to Italy, and so I figured I had only met Gianluca, by email, uh,
Yeah.
doing the art for Cage Birds. So I said, "Hey, why don't we make part of our trip to Milan?" And so Heidi and I went there, and we met him, and he knew more English than I knew Italian, which is not saying much. but but he brought a colorist friend of his who spoke a fair amount of Italian, and we went since it's the home of the uh, the margarita pizza. We went out to bar. We had pizza, margarita, and one of my favorite beers, which is a Birra Moretti,
Mm.
out at one of the cafes, and then we just we schmoozed and got to know each other, and he was just a really cool guy, and his friend also. We all hit it off, and between English, Spanish, and Italian, we managed to communicate. And he said, you should come and to Comic Con in Naples. We'll show you around. I'll introduce you to the comic community, and I'm going, oh, I don't know. I don't know the language. And it's, I get along here with a little Spanish, a little English, and stuff like that. But I don't know if I am. But maybe as a tourist, but just I don't know if I have that much time to travel. And so it's maybe someday. So then next thing I knew is he had told them about caged birds, and uh, that I was that he was going to distribute it in Italian, and he said, "Oh, by the way, uh, I wrote the graphic novel of Caravaggio in English, and that at that time we hadn't made any plans for I think Colatigo's End was just forming."
Oh, okay.
So he went out on a limb and said, we're talking about making an Italian version, and they said, oh, really? Well, just if you do that, we'll invite him out here. And so he said, "Oh yeah, we're definitely doing it." So so they invited me out there, and I thought, "Oh, well, okay, they're paying the freight, then I will go." And so
Yeah, that's like a huge opportunity to kind of to
yeah,
get there, and not only that. I guess before we kind of go on to caged birds, you want to kind of explain to people what that is as well.
yeah, that's a very it's based on that's a very European feeling script about uh, a young woman who's a piano virtuoso who gets in trouble with her family because uh, she has an affair with a female classmate, um, and then um, so they forbid her to play piano anymore, and so she appeals to her very much senior instructor, who makes a bargain with their parents that uh, to get her back in the class, which she begs for. But the bargain that he makes is that if he marries her, that she can play the piano. So so they strike that bargain, but she ends up falling in love with his eventual mistress, and so it's a very European kind of
Yeah,
plot. Uh,
yeah,
so uh, he was one of the people I had auditioned for, the Caravaggio artist, uh, and he and Cyrus Masarcio were kind of like neck and neck for the role. And when I went with Cyrus Masarcia, I wasn't planning to do two. I wasn't planning to start in comics doing two at once.
yeah,
But I go, you know, I have to engage this guy because what if somebody else snaps him up? And so I go, well, so I ran Cage Birds by him, and he goes, oh yeah, I would definitely love that project. So I ended up, doing two at once,
yeah,
and he was just like fantastic to work with. I mean, he knew exactly what I wanted. Communication was great, even though, you know, Google Translate was our mediator. So
yeah.
and it's been a great relationship. And I didn't even know he was a writer himself,
Yeah.
and much less someone with ambitions to be a publisher and stuff like that. So, but it's just been a great relationship.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think that's great too because, if you're doing like an international release, like one of the things with comics, right, is especially indies, which is like the realm most of us are dipping into. It's like, promotion is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so being able to have somebody in the area, like when you're internationally publishing it, right, that can be on location there to do cons and stuff like that there, or meet with stores and all of that. That's like a huge advantage too with kind of a release there. So real quick, so that's how you get invited to do this con in Italy. Was that a trip? Was that initial trip? Was that your first time in Italy, or was that a place you're kind of relatively familiar with?
Well, Heidi and I had honeymoon in Italy. We did the north part,
Yeah,
but that was like 2 years ago.
yeah.
Uh, so we went back to Milan. I guess that would have been just before COVID, and then yeah, that would have been just before COVID, and then and so when I went back, that was with Gianluca's invite.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
So okay, so you agree to go to this convention. I so now I kind of want to hear about the experience of that comic convention,
Ah,
and what that was like. Before that, though, I know like we were also talking about working with Italian artist Scott. You were mentioning that you've worked with an Italian artist as well, like and hired one, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
also hired a second Italian. I don't know what it is, but the group that I was in, I just look for artists that I really think are good for the project,
yeah,
and I hired one, and I worked with her on two different projects. Plus, she did a variant cover for. I don't know if I have it. I don't
yeah.
have
Her
it
stuff is
in reach,
beautiful
but
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
her stuff's amazing. And then I almost for this next project, we were gonna spread it between three different people, and the other artist I was looking at that I was going to reach out to was another Italian artist. And so I don't know what's in the water over there, but there's some really awesome artists, at least for what I was looking for.
yeah. Well,
But then
they're obviously their art tradition runs
yeah,
deep, but
yeah, exactly,
uh,
yeah, and
up
comics
through
too.
modern day,
Yeah,
their art schools are like
yeah.
hugely serious.
And the thing is, because and at least the one that I'm working with, her name's Federica Marchetti, and she, I s- I don't know her age or anything. I've only talked with her over email and stuff, but I know she's younger and just so accomplished as far as. And apparently, she's one thing I realized that I didn't know is that she's more well known over there as a writer than even an artist, and her artwork is tremendous. So the fact that she's better known as an artist, I assume she's a pretty good writer too. So,
Uh,
but yeah,
yeah. That's. I mean, it is one of those things where I think most people who are doing comics, for one reason or another, are usually going to be doing their own stuff as well, as like written stuff. And so that's an interesting dichotomy, right? Because I've written books too, and I'm currently illustrating one written by somebody else, right? As a collaboration. So it's like it is kind of an interesting thing to note that like the collaborations and the solo stuff can kind of exist in tandem, and it kind of makes sense because Ken, like you're a writer, but you've also done art, and you have like a pretty solid foundation in animation and stuff, and so it's like it. I guess it would make sense, right? I don't know.
yeah, and it's an advantage now in the entertainment industry, especially with because I mean. A lot of artists will worry about what their role is, especially with AI, and your role is basically, you better be producing something, preferably your own stuff, because if people are going to be relying on AI, uh, the pressure to do things on spec is only going to grow.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be doing work for free or on spec, it might as well be your own.
Yep.
So go ahead and develop your own stuff. And
I
most
love that.
and most people who do their own art, uh, they have a penchant. They have a favorite superhero or something like that. They have a favorite genre. Just go ahead and follow that creative instinct in that genre, and take take that direction.
It's great. That's actually really good advice. Okay, so when it comes to Italy, so what do you know about this con once you're invited and stuff, and then what is that like on your your kind of trip there? So I want to hear all about it because I've never been to Italy for a comic convention, so it sounds really kind of amazing.
If you went there, I mean, you're going to be there's tons of people doing cosplay. So you're going to be literally rubbing elbows with Naruto and Spider Man and so it will be not unlike going to San Diego or WonderCon or uh, uh, the uh, the energy is very much the same. You'll be having uh, lots of people staring at devices in front of them and bumping into you. And
Of course. So how do you pitch in Italy? Like if somebody comes, because I'm guessing they gave you like a place to booth and stuff as well, right? Or was it mostly to speak or like?
uh, yeah, I had a little booth time. So basically, I had a card in front of me because I determined, I didn't want to worry about VAT and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and I was there for the exposure, and I didn't want to stomp on other people's sales and stuff like that. So, and I wanted to help the collective. So I just and all I had was English stuff at the time. So I just made a thing. I said, buy you know X euros worth of Zen stuff, and you get a free English version of the trade paperback of Caravaggio,
Oh, how
or
lovely.
buy X version and you get the hardback version. And if I'm there, you get an autograph, and then if you're interested, leave your email, and then when the Italian version comes out, uh, you get a book plate, you know, autographed by me and Cyrus, and
I
we'll
love it.
make sure you get that.
That's a great deal, and that's actually a really smart idea for kind of navigating that. Um, I'm curious. Did you like so? Did you manage to get to schmooze with other creators? How many days was the convention?
Okay,
That kind of stuff.
yeah, it was Thursday through Sunday, and I tabled uh, 2 mornings, and I had uh, Zen Colectivo had a an hour presentation, and the two features were uh, my coming Italian version of Caravaggio and their present um, release, which is black. Uh, oh no,
It's okay.
yeah. Uh,
There's a link, by the way, to Zen Collectivo
oh,
down
oh,
below in the show notes too, so you guys can check out their releases and all the other information.
yeah.
Uh,
The premise is there's an alien. Uh, there's an alien race coming to invade the Earth, and they do so having planted uh, uh, subsonic devices, which most of humanity has no defense against, except for uh, this punk rock band and their fans because of I'm guessing the decibel level involved in the music, and so they become humanity's saviors. That's right, Black Salvation. That's what it's called.
Awesome.
So so
Nice.
I figured as a punk aficionado, you might appreciate that edge they have. So,
That sounds great. There is now I'm blanking. So have you guys ever heard of Guitar Wolf? Scott. So Kevin Cross and I got all obsessed with Guitar Wolf a while ago. It's a Japanese punk band, but they're like a rockabilly punk band.
uh-huh,
And all of the members of it have wolf in their name.
uh-huh.
So it'll be, like different so and so wolf, so and so wolf. It's like four guys. And they've had like movies and stuff where they're fighting giant monsters, like giant kaiju with their guitars by like playing the guitar and then it like shoots a beam from
Uh,
their guitars. It's the coolest thing in the world. Anyhow, it's
cool.
especially if you're into like B movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Check out Guitar Wolf; they're great.
Oh, that's,
But that's what that reminds me of. It's like shooting, with your guitar, which is pretty much like every guitarist's fantasy is to be able to shoot power beams from their guitar. Um, so that sounds amazing. So, were you able to kind of walk the con at all, or
I, I was, yeah, yeah. So I walked along, and it's just like uh, you want to pick up one of everything. It's just like, especially because like they have their own, they have their own, you know, native Italian comic art tradition, and it has their own look, and it's just like, of course, Mobius is a big part of their history, and they have this a whole lot of uh, people who are influenced by that kind of look,
yeah,
and
that's a great look.
and, and
That's not a bad look to be influenced by.
yeah, yeah, and I've been exposed. They have a hugely popular book called Kalakare, which is uh, a young man whose uh, relatives are, uh, you know, anthropomorphic animal representations. Some are kind of obviously Romani, and some are representations of Jewish people, and some are ex Nazis, and so it talks about the metaphorically the influence of the trauma of World War II on one generation, and then the succeeding generation, and then the grandchildren, and uh, it's it, and and
That
growing
sounds
up,
incredible.
yeah, growing up with that cross cultural and cross generational conflict, and somehow and how sometimes it's easier for the grandchildren to relate to the grandparents rather than the parents. It's really a very intriguing series,
Yeah,
and that's available in English as well. That's how I know of it, and so I wanted to like buy a lot more that's not available in English, but of course it's in
yeah,
Italian, which I don't know yet. But as soon as I get fluent, I'm looking forward to to picking more.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, that's one of the elements of boothing at cons or being a guest at a con that a lot of people don't realize is like as a indie creator, it's so tempting to just like blow through so much money just buying stuff you're a fan of like at those things.
Yeah.
And it's like that's always something I personally I almost have to treat it like Vegas, you know, where the way to come out of Vegas without going completely broke is like set a limit, you know, where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I can blow this much and that's it. Like once it reaches that point, I'm out. And you almost have to do that with with Comic Cons.
Yeah.
Have you had that problem, Scott? I don't know. I always have that problem where at conventions I always run the risk of spending more than I make whenever I booth at them. I don't know if you have that issue.
No, not really. I mean, sometimes I probably spend more than I should,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It kind of depends. Like sometimes I'll go to convention and it's like yeah, I'm not. Sometimes I don't even walk the floor, and then sometimes
Yeah.
I go there with the intention that yeah, I just know that I'm going to spend money, and that's kind of why I'm there. So
Yeah.
it just kind of depends.
Because for me, it's like it's more like if you're at a booth and then you have people come by to peruse your stuff, and then you see them holding something like amazing that you've never seen before. You're like, "Where'd you get that?" Like that's my problem. I don't know. But so is it? So in general, like you were there, was the language barrier an issue, or are most people in Italy pretty familiar with at least that you've met like we're pretty familiar with English, or was it like was that a hard thing to kind of navigate? Obviously, you're there with like a publisher you knew who could kind of speak both, but
Yeah, and then during the presentation, I forget what the gentleman's last name is right offhand, but his first name was Giacomo, and so he introduced himself to me. He's also a broadcast personality there, and so he was emceeing the presentation, and he spoke English, and which I didn't know, immediately. 'Cause he introduced himself in Italian because he didn't know what I knew, and so I said, "Is there going to be a translator?" And then he said, I speak my mother's Italian and my father's from Scotland." And I was tempted to say, from Scotland. But we'll still need a translator, won't we? But I restrained myself.
have
But
you? I don't know if you've ever seen this. I can't even remember who did it, but there was a thing on YouTube that was viral a while ago where it's like it's one of those like voice activated elevators, and it's
oh,
like in
really?
England, and so like these guys go in and they're like floor one, and it goes to floor one or whatever, and then it's like two Scots get in there and they're like, "Go to floor," and it's like, "What? Please repeat what you're saying." And they're like, "You don't understand. You go to floor two," and they're like, "Which? Please state which floor." Two. Anyhow, it's a good bit.
What is there a fire? Emergency services will be there shortly. Please use the stairs.
so So out of curiosity, so you have this experience now in Italy. Was it positive enough to where you'd be like potentially like gearing up to do that more frequently with like an Italian trip?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going back next year. I am also emboldened to be going to Cannes next year because the film festival is right after um, uh, uh, Comic Con Napoli,
Nice.
and my a friend of mine, Alexia uh, Anastasia Flora, will be uh, her film. I think it's called I think the Divine Santa Monaco, which is a uh, a Southern California based romance will be making the film festival rounds. So she'll be there, and she not only exhibits, but she also knows a lot about the film market. So she'll be helping me put together a pitch deck for the Caravaggio film project.
I love it.
And while I'm there, I'm going to be trying to look for a French publisher, and maybe even pitch, because you know a lot about Caravaggio and the time, uh, because it's the beginning of the Baroque era, and Italy as such is just coming together because
Yeah.
it's still warring French and Spanish, uh, and church dominated city states uh, just starting to coalesce. Uh, it's a very intriguing time, and and artists at that time are sort of the back channel diplomats between uh, the the Reformation countries and the counter Reformation countries. Um, so uh, there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and also a lot of science and suppression of science, including the camera oscura. And then in the art scene, you have that phenomena of the people on in the know using these science-based techniques and producing mind-blowingly accurate art. And then you have the people on the outside going, I thought I was good.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm practicing all these formulas from the
Yeah.
Renaissance, and I still can't get that good.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so how do I up my game? And some of them manage to do it without any optics or tricks.
Yeah. Yeah. They're kind of doing Vermeer without like realizing Vermeer's trick.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but they manage to raise their game
Oh
anyway
yeah. Yeah.
because they see it, and
Yeah.
they say, well, it must be possible. I just have to try harder.
Yeah.
And then you have on the other side, you have the beginning of the impressionists, expressionists that can't do it,
Yeah.
but they say, but what is art? What is my role? My yearning to create?
Yeah.
Does it mean nothing? That at that point, their expression would be, if God has given me this drive, then certainly there must be some other way to express it. And so
Yeah.
they're bringing other things to the table in the art world, and it's causing a rebellion in the discussion of what is art and what is color and composition and what is emotional impact, and
Yeah.
so you have all that at the same time that there are petty wars and grand wars coming in. It's just like, so there's when you're developing a novel, a graphic novel, a screenplay, there's so much that ends up on the cutting room floor that you know a graphic novel like Caravaggio could be the backbone of a miniseries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
so I'd like to kind of develop a, a miniseries Bible with where Caravaggio and perhaps one other uh, uh, Reformation artist are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be amazing. And honestly, like that is one thing that I'm noticing too. Just working on historical fiction stuff, there's so many elements that go into it, just even creating the art for it and stuff, where it's like the writer mentions like a ship that somebody's taking from like England to Italy in Victorian England or something, and it's like suddenly I have to look up what was a long, like what would that ship have been, what would that look like,
Yeah.
And then you start reading about it and you learn all this interesting stuff about like transport at the time. Was it steam powered? Like how did these things work, at that point? And like the further back you go, the more you kind of have to get into all these different intricacies. And not only that, but to tell a story of somebody who historically existed, it's you learn all this information, and then it's like parsing it, like you were saying, leaving some on the cutting room floor is really fascinating. Where every once in a while, when you're doing that research, you'll come across like a million things that are like, oh my gosh, that would be a great story on its own, but it just has to be, like for the through line of this shorter story. So I love the idea of, yeah, I do think like a mini series for that kind of thing is really smart, because there's so much just in that book that could be kind of expanded upon.
Yeah.
And it's a big graphic novel, but it's like I'd encourage you guys to check it out. There's definitely a million times where you could go further, and it must have taken a lot of self discipline to kind of keep it condensed to that
Yeah.
smaller book, even though it's a big book. Yeah.
And that was I think I mentioned this briefly our last interview. It's just like because I was stubborn in my writers group. I was stubborn on just that point, because like I had like 164 page script, and I was arguing with everybody. It's just like, it's just one of those big stories. It just you can't get any more condensed than that. And then I was in a correspondence with Neil Adams, and he said, "No, you can always cut." Just like, because no one's gonna read a miniseries. It's over 6 issues, and I'm going, and it's just like, and and I know, he's a really nice and accessible guy, but you also know that you don't have unlimited emails to exchange.
Yeah. Yeah,
with
exactly.
this guy. It's just like, you're not going to convince him of anything, and it's just like, so if he says something,
Yeah.
he means it, and you take it and you run with it, and or you just and so if you want those pearls of wisdom, you to keep coming, you got to earn them, and you got to prove to them you're listening.
Yeah.
So I would I'd have to come back, and I'd say, well, because like at that time he still had this offer for me on the table. He said, you can't afford me, but I have these investors who, God bless them, they want one of everything I do, and if you still insist on having something, maybe I can do your covers, and we can work out a deal where you know you can finance part of the covers, and they'll get the originals, and then you can do the print on the covers, and then you'll still have a Neil Adams cover for your things. And that never came to pass, but
Yeah.
that was always something on my mind. But in the meantime, he forced me to trim it down, and say whatever else you want about the book, it moves.
It does.
There's no fat.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that makes it very unique for that time period, writing about that time period, because it is like, by all accounts, an action book. And it's like a lot of people wouldn't think of that if they're thinking, a story of, a painter in that era, but it is just nonstop action. Like there's obviously like a lot of plot and character growth and stuff like that. But it is, I was really surprised when I first read it, how like action packed, just like page turning. It's a very, very exciting book. where it's got like rooftop chases like at the very beginning. And I think that's kind of that it does benefit from that because it is very quick. It's a quick read for a big book. And and again, because of that, I'm like, oh, I can see where you could branch out to a series from it. Um, so what's interesting to me is when you're doing these translations and stuff, why do you think that more indie creators aren't doing that? Out of curiosity, because that is kind of an interesting. I don't know. It's just interesting to me.
If you go the traditional route and you seek a translator, someone who does basically that, verbally and written, and a literary translator, who maybe doesn't do comic books, they do traditional literature and stuff like that. They will quote you a scary price,
Yeah.
and that's enough to dissuade your, necessarily economy-minded comic book creator. But if you go through Fiverr and you get somebody who ranks 4.7 or 4.7 to 5 stars and has a good reputation, you can work with someone like that. You can say, yeah, it's a book and it's 154 pages, but really the verbiage is,
Yeah.
when you condense it down, it's like, pamphlet size, just like, so there are, and when you provide them, you have to go through and provide them the condensed thing and say, this
Yeah.
really how much words there are. And then you see, oh, okay, well, it's just like, and then, and then, so, and there are a couple things I need you to do. I also need you to, uh, help me with the synopsis and, the peculiarities of the non-grammatical structure of the log line and pitch and stuff like that, because it's a concocted English.
Yeah.
It's not grammatical, really. So for the most part, because it's conversational and it's heavy slang.
Yeah.
But so for for hundreds, not thousands, you can get it done, and it's really fairly low hanging fruit. Um, so the one thing I didn't realize doing the comic first is that architecturally, when you're doing a comic book page, yes, you need a letterer looking at it from the get-go, because you really don't realize how important it is, the space and the placement
Oh yeah.
of these word balloons, because you got to make them fit.
Yeah.
And it interferes with everything from the layout to the page turn, which you're aware of artistically and story wise.
Yeah.
And that takes a little getting used to. So when you're visually storyboarding your story, I mean, that's tough enough. And then if you're just learning like I am and taking on the lettering, and then saying, okay, well, then now all I need to do is letter, then you come up on those challenges and go, holy crap, there's no room for heads in this panel. I have to choose between words and heads.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because just on that note, like my first few comics were done just like art, and then I slapped the text over it. And I don't know when this happened, but there was a point where I finally decided to make the conscious decision to just have it all organically feel together to start kind of hand lettering, even if it was like mimicked hand lettering.
Yeah.
But one benefit that came out of that was at the thumbnail stage, right? I'm thinking about the shape. At the rough stage, I'm blocking in what text is going to go in there so that it expedites the art because you're not drawing unnecessary details. And it creates it allows you to be more fluid and include all those text balloons and stuff that need to be in there. You're designing it for that. The only downside of that is because I've hand lettered a lot of this stuff. Translating it would be a nightmare because you'd have to hand letter the whole thing all over again. And also, now I can't just like stretch the balloon. So that would be a huge advantage to like digitally lettering in layers above your art that's filled in underneath. Is when Ken with things that Ken's talking about, like reformatting widths and sizes, and then also maybe having to extend, like if it's a language where larger expressions can be condensed, right? Now you have more space to account for in the art, and then if it's a language that's going to be larger, then now you have to expand these balloons and stuff. So that's but yeah, that is the interesting challenge. Scott has a really good video on lettering for comics that everybody should check out. And speaking of lettering and typography and space, I think Corey just dropped something on that too on his channel. So
yeah, just basic. I don't know how well it would translate into comic book lettering.
It would.
Yeah, there's just some basic rules. I mean, especially people don't think about center alignment. Center alignment is really hard to do. Like left alignment and right alignment, you throw it and you align it. But like center alignment, you have to deal with two rag edges because you don't have a flush edge. And so you want to make sure that you're like balancing the line breaks so that the thought doesn't get disrupted by being thrown onto a different line. But then also the shape of the thing, you want to follow like the figure ground concept and have it bulge outward instead of being convex. You want it to be convex instead of concave. And so that becomes a bit of a challenge when you want phrases to line up with you. Anyway, I think often people who are beginning lettering don't recognize. They're just like, I need to fit the words in the balloon, and you're like, no, you need the flow of the thing. It's an art in of itself. But yeah, that video.
I think I spent a good chunk of time as a cartoonist trying to fight orphans. Not in the Corey Kerr punching babies kind of way, but punching orphans. The single word that ends up in the I hate that so much. I don't do that.
I don't mind orphans too much in speech bubbles, as long as the speech bubbles tends to be a little bit rounder. It feels like they're cradled a little bit more than in a normal paragraph. But yeah, it depends on the size of the word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Lettering's a lot harder than people think.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but philosophically, I have a real problem with word breaks, with dashes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hyphens. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate hyphens.
It's just a cheat, and it disrupts the it disrupts the vibe when you're reading.
Yeah, the only time I usually, if it's like a huge, really long word, I tend to try to avoid hyphens too.
Yeah. I mean, the only time I feel like
that's hyphenated. If it's a word that is hyphenated, then
that's true. Yeah, you can break a hyphenated word.
But I also think you can. There's a little bit of the. If the character is stuttering or thinking through something, or if there's a natural pause, you can intentionally disrupt the text that way, and hyphens can help in that aspect. But yeah, they're ugly, horrible tools. I hate them mostly.
Yeah, basically, but what's fun about that is and Ken, I think it's cool that you've been lettering because it's like it gives you a better understanding of the artist's perspective as well on that, right? Where it's like you really do have to like allot that space and like and if you got really verbose in a script, well now you got to figure out how to make that work on a page, you know. And so but the nice thing about the writer lettering is you have the advantage of being able to edit in real time where you're like, okay, this went like a sentence too long, I'm going to take it out. That's one thing I do like about when I'm writing and illustrating my own books is like if I went a little wild on the script, I can go, okay, let's pull it back a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, it's funny because like in a screenplay, you don't catch a lot of times you don't catch redundancies until like a group read or somebody else
Right.
read
yeah,
to you. But like when you're laying it out on a page, and you're looking at the real estate it's taken up, it's just like, oh no, I just like that. I can't repeat that. It's just
yeah.
like, there's no room for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people might kind of make the assumption like, oh, well, you should just make the type smaller. But like the smaller the type on a comic page, like the harder it is for people to read. I've had people, you know, where I have a decent point size, and I've had people at cons squint when they're looking at like two stories, just because the type got as small as I could get it. But it's not like microscopic. It's not like Chris Ware lettering where it gets like you know, but it's still, it's like you want to be cognizant of like, you know, the reader's experience too, and try to, you know, find that balance.
Yeah, and you
Because
want
nobody
to
wants to pull out a microscope when they're reading comics, you know.
figure that point size out in the beginning.
Yeah, so it's
one
consistent.
thing you don't want to do is you don't want your point size to change unless in specific cases, like if somebody's shouting or something,
Or whispering.
or whispering, right? But other than that, you don't want to like have one panel and the next. Oh, I can't fit it, so I'll just make it smaller. You know? Yeah. I'm just. This is all fresh in my mind because I'm lettering right now as we're talking. So
You guys should check out Scott's video on it, though. He talks about the balloons and
also
the tables, and like gets into
the comic
science
maker. I mean the comic lettering masterclass is if you want to learn how to letter, that's the perfect thing. You know, to really just to pat myself on the back. It's a really good tool.
It is.
And it's got all the rules, but it also has like you can practice doing hand lettering or digital hand lettering, you know, or whatever. So it's a cool prep tool. So
I love it. We have a lot of talk about dealing with text is one of my anxieties for creating comics, Dylan said. It's one of the fun parts about creating comics, though. It's the addictive part that gets us all hooked on this crazy drug called comics.
And also it's a really good point when talking about translating. If you want to look forward to having your comic translated, it's nice to have a font that already has those accents and weird things.
Oh yeah.
From the get-go, because I mean the font I had originally, it didn't have the backwards accents and all the thing that you need fitted, and so to like have to change your font across, hundreds of pages, it's just it's a big pain. And if you can have a nice looking font that has the international set on it, that is such a blessing.
You know what I'm also curious about? How do you go about this is all sorts of weird questions, but it's just a curiosity. Okay, so you get your script back, right? You've got it translated. How do you pick how to break it up? How do you know the separations?
Yes. That's that's good because it's like if you're not fluent that language, where's the noun, where's the verb, how in this where does the colloquial phrase end?
Yeah.
What word am I looking at? Am I breaking the balloon at a the.
Yeah,
Or,
Right.
that's what I was just realizing is like that must be nuts.
yeah.
Trying to figure that out.
So yeah. So in your notes, the translator, uh, as you break it up in the text, you you let them know. This so remember, this is a comic book, and so when I chunk things out, first off, you provide it for them. You give them uh, the JPEG of the English.
Yeah.
Well, basically, so the format I give them is I give them the PDF with the JPEG of the comic book page in English, with the uh, English text in one column, and uh, and or I give them an RTF with two columns, which is text on one side in English, uh, that they can see in the JPEG, and a blank column that they put the translation on the next one. And I say, as close as you can, it needs to be chunked out in the same proportions.
Oh, got it. Yeah, so almost like there's space between the different chunks so
Yeah,
that it's like so you can just go, okay, that's the chunk.
yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty brilliant workaround with that.
and
Yeah.
and if it doesn't work, then feel free to break it up the way you need to, but know that it has to be chunked out in a way that makes difference. And I can add more balloons or take balloons away, but it's got to be chunked out in a way that makes sense to read in chunks.
Wow, I absolutely adore that. So
Thanks for
what's
bringing
the
thanks for bringing that up, because I wouldn't have thought to to mention
well,
it.
it was just a curiosity thing of like trying to think of the logistics of it, and I'm like, that would be kind of a challenge too. Um, so out of curiosity, so the next thing that's going to be released in a foreign language is the Italian version of Caravaggio, right? Which is
Yeah, that'll be the first thing. Yeah, exactly.
and then the first one will be Caged Birds. Is
And
that
the
correct?
next one will be volume one of Cage Birds,
Okay, Caged
which
Birds.
will be like the equivalent to like first three single issues.
Oh, exciting! That's
And then
awesome.
the next thing will be volume two of Caravaggio. Uh, so it'll be like the first three issues will be of Caravaggio will be volume one. Then first three issues of Cage Birds. Then the next uh, three issues. So that they kind of traditionally chunk it out that way,
Yeah,
in three issues, and then uh, after some time, then they make what they call an omnibus, which is however many issues there is for
yeah.
the entire story. That's what they call an omnibus, and that's typically a hardback version.
So it's more similar to kind of almost like France in the way that they're publishing the books, where it's like books, but they're not giant books. They're like little booklets, but they're not tiny like floppies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think so. Here's a question. It does Italy have? Did it feel like there's more of a focus on independence? Not I don't know if independence is the right word. Like kind of more diversity in stories with the larger comics that you like, the more popular comics in Italy. Do they have a broader range of subject matter than American comics in your opinion, or
Um,
yeah, I'm just kind of curious about that.
yeah, it's quite a broad range. There and styles. They have, from the everything from a very kind of youngish, uh, cartoony style, uh, very kids centric, to the same kind of style with more adult themes, kind of more like Bone.
Yeah.
And then they have that kind of same thing, which is kind of like what Calcare is, which is that kind of same cartoony style, but very mature themed.
Yeah.
Um, so that they would have that same style across three age ranges, and then that you would have something kind of more resembling kind of a cross between Mobius and Crumb, kind of a street ghetto feel to it, and that would range from popular to mature to what we would call what we might call bordering on pornographic, but which they would consider just to be mature.
Yeah. Just part of the. So yeah, because I'm always curious about that because I know that I've had multiple friends who are cartoonists speak really well of France and their kind of uh, the availability in like a normal bookstore for people to come across like all genres. Like it's not just like I'm going to the sci-fi section. It's like a broader. That's been like most of what's been expressed to me about France, but I've never really talked to a lot of people who've published in Italy, and so I was curious if it was kind of similar in that way, where it's like a broad spectrum of genres, which exist in the U.S., but I feel like there's definitely like a dominant, like in the comics market, there's like a couple dominant genres, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, it's like, and I would say it's kind of different. And like, if you were to go to Japan
yeah,
uh, and and look at the mature themed comics,
yeah,
there's to the Western way of looking at there's definitely a pervy vibe
oh yeah, that's true.
to what you see, whereas somehow you don't see the crossover between the childlike rendering and the eroticism
Yeah,
combined. I mean, uh, there is there is a divide there where
yeah.
it's hard to explain. It's just
No, that kind of makes sense. I think that actually makes really good sense. Well, we've been going for almost an hour, and we're getting close to an hour and 30. So, and I know we're all curious to watch the, I'm sure, fast-paced presidential debate with some very vigorous and young um, presidential candidates yelling at each other, and I'm sure we're all interested in checking that out. But and as our audience and stuff. Ken, thanks for joining us. Is there anything you want to kind of let people know? Obviously, we should probably let them know where to find your work again and where to pick up these books if they haven't already.
okay. Caravaggio, A Light Before the Darkness, available at Amazon and internationally in English through Marcosia, and I think you and I share them as a international distributor.
Mhm.
Um, and so soon in Italian under Fumetti Collettivo Zen, and hopefully next year in multiple languages. Well, it will be available in multiple languages. Hopefully distributed by more than just myself.
That's
And then
exciting.
yeah, and then so there will be many. I've got several. What will happen is I will have several things. I've got a queue of things. I've got first issues of several things, which I'm finally going to release next year. I've got Magnum Farce, Ms. Valkyrie, a lot
Wait,
of.
Magnum Farce is going to be out as a comic?
Oh yes, by here's the artist. His name is, and he's getting quite the reputation now. And he just has this art book out called
Oh, that's lovely.
of his pen and ink work.
That's
and
great.
That's
it's
beautiful.
Claudio Munoz, and this just came out, I think, just a few weeks ago.
Oh, exciting.
And
That's beautiful.
I pre-ordered it, but this guy is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I forget what. Forgive me, Claudio. I forget what awards he just won, but if you, this guy is just stupendous, and
That's great.
yeah.
And that's going to be Magnum Farce, which is I mean, if you guys aren't familiar with Magnum Farce, it's Ken made it initially like an animation and a script and a full film script, and that's been something you've been. I'm excited that that's going to come out as a comic. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it's a spoof of Dirty Harry films, and then Ms. Valkyrie is a semi compared to where things could be heading. It's not really that dystopian anymore.
That's true.
But she's a passage worker of the future who dispatches people in erotic ways.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really encourage you guys to follow Ken's work. He covers a ton of genres in his writing. It's very awesome and diverse and fascinating stuff, and really good books. And again, if you guys haven't bought Caravaggio, make sure you do. The Light Before the Darkness. It's a worthwhile book to read. I'm blanking out on the awards that it's won, but it's won like quite a few amazing writing awards.
I may have some.
You might have a copy here or there.
Let's see, the Independent Press Award, the Cinematic Book Award, and was a finalist at Eric Hoffer. This one here I can't read because I need better readers, and God, what is that? Anyway, it's red and it's nice.
Won the Red Nice Award. That's the most prestigious.
I got a lot of fancy pull quotes too in the back. So.
They are great. And well earned pull quotes. Well, so make sure you guys check that out by Ken. And again, Ken, we're gonna have to barbecue or something this summer. We gotta get you in on our like artist retreat thing. But anyhow,
yeah, we could do a cast from Cambria.
Oh, Cambria that's still one of my favorite trips and places in the world. I love it. All right. So with that all being said, make sure you check out kenmorra.com. The link to the Italian publisher is also right under that. So check that out. Make sure you're following Ken on everything. Corey, how do people, the Red Nice Award, I feel like the Artcasters, we should make a Red Nice Award that we give people. Let us know who your candidates are in the comments section for the Red Nice Award.
There was a time where that was a really good grift on the internet. It's just like, about 15 years ago, just come up with an award, and then all of a sudden people wanted it. So
yeah, and that award, like, it'll give you everything. It'll give you you get respect for it, and it'll only cost you $1 million.
That's right. And they have these really nice ones you can get on Temu now that are blank. So all you need to do is have a good stamp on it.
There you go.
But I will tell you, like Ken is, those words are good and really legit and stuff like that. And you guys should read that book. Corey, where can everybody find your award-winning work? Because you again have done some award-winning animations and stuff like that. Where can people check that out?
Yeah, if you want to see some award-winning animation, you can go to CoreyKerr.com and click on the animation tab, and there's some stuff there. If you want to read what I am currently working on and find out why it's very important to punch babies and old people in the face in this particular world, you can check out CoreyKerr.com/book. And that'll take you to the book that I am serializing for free in the public, and you can read, listen to, or watch those chapters as they come out. I think I've got 8 or 9 of them out now, so
I love
you can do that. And if you want to learn basic graphic design principles, just stay tuned on YouTube. Those are coming out over the next couple of weeks.
And I do want to. I know Scott's talked about this too, but it's like I want to really support what Corey's doing because he's also providing this as like an audiobook, so it's kind of perfect. Like it's little sections on YouTube that you can listen to as well on his channel. And so it's really perfect if you're like in a scenario where you're drawing a lot and you want something to listen to. And it's a really well-written story. Ken, you dig it too. It's got like a Terry Pratchett vibe. It's very very funny and farcical, but also very serious and bizarre in a way only Corey could do. Scott, where can people, if people remember Fun Dip and they want to see what is Fun Dip like if you take out the fun, where can they go? And also, how do they keep track of this wild business that is the Artcasters that bounces all over?
Yeah, if you take out the fun, it's pretty sad. So that's my sad dip. Definitely, if you haven't checked this video, watch the video. It's super fun.
It is.
It's on my YouTube page. Just search Circworks Art Lab on YouTube. Well, you'll find that and a bunch of other videos where I take vintage ephemera from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and give it a unique twist. So redesigning it and everything. Plus all my old comic book content is still up there, including Making Comics 101 if you want to learn how to make comics. Or you can learn how to make comics by, like I mentioned earlier, I've got the comic lettering masterclass and a bunch of other digital products available on my website, along with my own comic, Young and the Dead, Kids vs. Zombie Adventure Story. But this show, the Artcasters, we do this show pretty much every single week. And it kind of rotates between the 3 of our channels. And it's usually on Thursdays, but it could be a different day. Basically, what I'm getting at is that if you want to know when to find us, when we're going to be on, who the guest is going to be on, all that stuff, join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is use about 30 minutes ahead of time, except for today, which I totally spaced out and did not send out a newsletter. But that's not always the case. So sorry, everyone. But usually we do send out a newsletter just letting you know where to find us online. So definitely click on that link in the description.
I adore it. And then I forgot to mention this too. Make sure you check out these albums. And then and also make sure you're subscribed and you've hit the bell and all that fun stuff. All right. But this one in particular just came out. Listen to it. All right, guys. Have a good one and enjoy your day. And with that, we will close out with the best theme song provided by Jim Lujan collaborating with the Axel.
This one goes out to the Artcasters. Ooh, Artcasters! I say you're catching your spell, Artcasters. Catching your spell. Ooh, you're gonna cast that spell. Strike a hell. Whoa!